Ramping up your business? The time is near. You've given it heart. Now get it in gear. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do marketing for Gearhart Law, and I am the founder of Gear Media Studios, a full-service podcast studio.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with entrepreneurs and celebrities who tell their stories about their business journey and also share helpful insights about the successes that they've had. So now we need to talk to our featured guest in a little bit more detail. Shekar, once again, welcome to the show. If your supply chain could think for itself and outsmart your current one, then Shekar Natarajan is the guy to talk to. He's a leader in supply chain management and strategy and the founder and CEO of Orchestro AI. They orchestrate entire delivery networks without human intervention and have transformed giants like Walmart and PepsiCo. And the first question I want to ask may be obvious, Shekar, but what is supply chain?
Well, supply chain and logistics is basically the art and science of movement of things. Okay. And this is the movement of anything, to be honest. Anything can be considered a supply chain. Like, bees going and pollinating is a supply chain because it actually creates the ecosystem. Products moving from China all the way to our door is a supply chain, right? You basically manufacturing something in your handcrafting it and trying to get it into someone else's hand is supply chain, right? So supply chain is all around us, but it is also invisible to us. Invisible to us. The reason why I say that, it's like an underbelly. People only hear talking about supply chains when things don't work. Imagine COVID. Imagine vaccines not being there. Imagine Purell hand sanitizers not available. Imagine diapers not available. Imagine kids not getting the toys during Christmas. That was because supply chains were very fragile. They were broken systems. And it's a collection of many, 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 many different parties. So let me give you a good example. Like a can of pear, like a dole pear, the pears grow in Chile, gets transported to Thailand, gets cut there, gets packaged in China, and moves to New York store and gets sold for 50 cents. So that pear actually moved 20,000 miles across the world before it showed up in your hands. And there are so many people who actually touch that journey. So people think of supply chains as these sophisticated systems, but these are all humans, doing a lot of miracles so that you are not disappointed as a customer.
So, Shekar, you're a master of artificial intelligence, and here we are talking about human beings being a part of essential part of the supply chain process.
Yeah.
How do you marry those two? Isn't that a paradox?
That's what people would say, right? No, absolutely not. And the story actually goes back to the genesis of what I was talking about, right? So in 2005, okay, my father slipped into coma. He was an angel maker in many people's lives. And I was rushed to go to India. When I reached home, my father basically is 88% of his brain was completely damaged. He couldn't recognize me. I couldn't recognize him because he was completely fragile. And here he was a healthy guy who would do yoga every day, would keep himself very fit, and he slipped into coma. And at that time, I had to make a decision about whether my father needs to be alive or not.
Oh my gosh.
And you don't hit let's go button. You pause, you think, you think and you think. And sometimes you think for 13 days and never get the answer. And I woke up on the 14th day and I said, like, my father probably doesn't want to live the way he's living. And when I had that, when I went through that, it just changed the way I think about leadership. It just like tempered my entire philosophy about love, care, affection, and consciousness.
How
And
did it
like
change that?
similar thing.
What changed?
So for me, like, like at that time, I made a promise to my father. I said, I'm going to look out for all the angels that are similar to him
Mm.
and make them empowered. And my life has been a series of accidents, Elizabeth and Richard. Like I work for large companies. I work for Coke, I work for PepsiCo, I work for Walmart, I work for Walt Disney Company, I work for basically American Eagle. One thing which was common in all of these companies, the law of large numbers. Law of large numbers. Lot of people, lot of people, lot of people. And so all these are incredibly beautiful supply chain companies. And I envision and I kept seeing, because you set your intentions and your mind begins to see what you want to see. And I started seeing angels everywhere, everywhere. And then in 2017, I had a similar experience. Now my mother was sick, and I became the voice for my mom, for her stillness, for her will. And by then, by God, like I was super successful. I had all the titles, but I had nothing. I felt like hollow. I was chasing validation from others. I was not chasing the dream that I wanted. And I made a promise to my father. So at that time, like I had the second calling. And at that time, I was fully determined, by God, I'm actually going to create something very fascinating for, like, for humans to become like extraordinary in what they do, to capture the humanness. Like the guy who goes out of the way and doesn't care that he did not finish the delivery on time, but goes to an elderly house, like a customer who's elderly, and makes a delivery of grocery and pharmaceuticals to them. He didn't care about like basically like running overtime or not over overtime. He just did what was right. The guy was running into the house of an elderly person whose house was in fire. And these are not like made up stories. These are actually the real stories that people don't hear about,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how do you capture the humanness of these people and make them extraordinary souls? And when you're able to do that, every transformation, every industry change becomes easy because you have the power of masses with you. Power
So
of
how do you capture that? How do you capture within the system, within a business context? How do you capture the humanity there and
yeah,
channel it to the right business purpose?
yeah. So basically, the way we have conceptualized, if I just sold virtues and values and everything, like we live in a very capitalistic world. No one would buy that. Let's be honest about it. Okay.
Right.
So the way our network works is, you see this at your door today. You have a FedEx driver showing up at the door, a UPS driver showing up at the door, another carrier like an Amazon and a USPS mailman. Everyone is coming to your door, and subconsciously people are replicating, building more delivery companies to the door. The problem is, it's very similar to utility. You don't have like one company delivering water to your bedroom, one to your master bathroom, one to basically your living room, one for your
Hmm.
kids. You don't have that. You have like one unified system. So the most efficient last mile is one where basically you're consolidating everything to the same door. So that gives the efficiency play. Now, I overlay that as a feature, like what I'm talking about, these digital angels, the angels of compassion, the angels of like, temperance, the angel of. So these are all virtues that make us very human. And we give the control back to the humans to basically override the machine decisions. I'm a delivery driver. I'm making a delivery. I know that I have to go there. I can make an exception to that process. So you're bringing
So,
the human into the loop and and basically amplifying their goodness while you're driving the efficiency at the same time.
So if you're, I'm just curious about how this fits in with your work with agentic AI. So if you're programming AI agents,
Yeah.
which I want to have my own like 1,000 AI agents to do everything that I don't want to do. I mean, is there room for human intervention if you're using AI agents to do all these tasks for you?
Obviously, right? People have been very fascinated about autonomous delivery for a while. I remember I have a lot of patents on that. People have been talking about like autonomy is coming, like it's almost there at your doorstep, and it never came, even after a decade. You know
Hmm.
why? Because I'll give you a classic example, and like this will drive home the point. In India, when you're driving around, right? Like people like put their right hand and take a left turn. They put the left hand out and take a right turn. And they put both hands up and then they drive straight. So the driver would basically, like the guy who's driving the vehicle is trained to think in 360 degrees, don't even like pay attention. I understand the context of like what's going on. So they're able to adapt. But what they're not able to adapt is a cow sitting in the center of the road. The cow cannot communicate its intent to you. It doesn't understand your intent to her, right? And so we live in a very similar society where things are always going to be heterogeneous, always heterogeneous. So we are always going to live in a hybrid world. And hence, basically, human is always going to discern more, feel more, think, think. Obviously, they can think. Thinking is actually like now getting sort of outsourced to AI. But the feeling,
completely, by the way.
right? But the feeling and the humanness is still very human. You cannot replace it. You cannot replace it.
So we have to take a commercial break now. This has been a fascinating discussion and has really started opening my eyes a bit to the interaction between human beings and potentially and artificial intelligence. And when we come back, I really want to know what the word heterogeneous means because I haven't heard that one before. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Our special guest, Shekar Natarajan, who is the CEO of Orchestro AI. We'll be back right after this.
Attention investors. This is a simple commercial on the investment value of gold. Gold continues to make new highs. In good markets and in bad markets, you need to have your portfolio balanced with gold. Learn about owning physical gold or getting a gold-backed IRA. Make this simple call right now.
800-653-2073. 800-653-2073. That's 800-653-2073.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold. We're offering a 100% risk-free gold guide. Gold continues to make new highs. And unlike stocks, gold has never been worth zero. You owe it to your nest egg and future to own some physical gold or set up a gold-backed IRA. Call right now for your free report.
800-653-2073. 800-653-2073. That's 800-653-2073.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold.
Do you love going on a cruise, or have you always dreamt on going on the cruise vacation of your life? With dozens of cruise companies, who do you call to find the right vacation and deal for you? Now you can make one phone call and shop all the best deals on every single cruise line in the world. You can't get that by calling one cruise line. We have them all, with experts that know the ins and outs of every cruise ship and can tell you the best cruise for your vacation needs. Our cruise packages start at $149. Plus, we offer free internet, free guest packages, and cash back deals. So now is your chance to book the cruise of your lifetime. Call the cruise hotline right now and shop every single cruise line in the world. Here's the number. 800-577-4742. 800-577-4742. 800-577-4742. That's 800-577-4742.
Now back to Passage to Profit. Once again, Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
And our special guest, Shekar Natarajan, and we are talking about supply chains and AI.
He's a very high-level thinker.
He is. And Shekar used a word that I think is kind of a new one. I don't know.
Could you repeat the word and explain it to me? Because it sounds like it's a good word, and I want to know what it means.
You mean to say heterogeneous, or you mean to say angelic intelligence?
Heterogeneous.
I like both of those.
Well, I'll explain both of those. So what is heterogeneous is like dissimilar things. Like basically a autonomous vehicle can go side by side with the guy who's actually driving the car. Right? So we live in a society where we are always going to have things which need to coexist together. And we as a humanity have always coexisted together. We welcome people who don't look like us. Like, look at me. Just look at me. I basically came from India with $34 in my pocket. This country is the most beautiful country that anyone can be in. It created so many opportunities for me, and I'm sure I wouldn't have been the same if I was elsewhere, because all I had to do is keep my intentions clean and keep working hard, and things started to happen to me. So that is the beauty of this country that makes it very unique. It is welcoming, it is beautiful, it gives you opportunities. If you have right intentions, good goals, it's going to make you realize your dreams. So for me, when I think about all these systems that we keep talking about, whether it's AI, whether it's artificial intelligence, autonomy, all kinds of robots running around, boy, these are all great things. But what it does not do is feel like a human. And hence, instead of building artificial intelligence, how about we start building angelic intelligence? Angelic intelligence is bringing out the goodness in people, unleashing that imagination, unleashing that creativity, unleashing that kindness. See what happened in Texas. Such a disaster.
Yeah.
But one of the most beautiful things that happened even in that trying circumstances, is people who did not know other people just showed up out of love, out of compassion. How does a machine capture that?
Well, it's interesting as we go through this AI transition and we integrate artificial intelligence more and more into our lives. I think most of us meet it with some
Skepticism.
some mixture of fear and excitement. But I don't think anybody's talking about the potential to enhance the human aspect of people. I think we're all, or I am at least, looking at it sometimes as a way of sort of almost taking things away from us, taking away the opportunity to think or to master skills, and they're not really being a replacement for those activities, right?
Yeah.
And if you're looking at it as an additive rather than a subtractive, then I think that can bring new potential to us. I'm not sure what form that would take, but I think could be potential there.
Absolutely. See, let's rewind history. Let's think about history. Let's think about civilizations. I come from a land where there's a lot of cultural heritage. Dates long back. It goes long back. And there was and this, I'm not talking and glorifying India and all that stuff. I don't want you guys to think that. But there was a notion of zero. There was a notion of mathematics. There was a notion of physics. There was a notion of astronomy. There was a notion of astrology, right? All of these existed. And over many generations, it got lost. And then in 18th century, people show up and start basically figuring out that like sun does not like rotate around earth, like it's the vice versa. Right? And like math gets figured out, like, and like gravity gets figured out. And but like when you go read like some scriptures, like people are levitating. How the heck was that possible? How are they building temples which basically carried many boulders up the hill, and they were able to construct a beautiful temple with architectural marvel in it? Who actually taught them that? And what was lost? And why was it lost? And in the world of AI, this is the most like scary thing that actually bothers me. If you keep training AI, it would think baby peacock is basically the smaller version of the peacock. But we all know baby peacocks don't look like peacocks, by the way. And people will think that baby peacocks are small peacocks, right? So we're
Right.
going to lose the context and basically the intellectual property of what it is. And we're going to assume what you read and what you see is reality. It is not reality, it is hallucination.
Right.
Well, and Richard read an article just the other day. You were
I,
going to bring
I was
that
just going to bring this up. So,
about how this person was saying, well, just accept hallucinations as part of life.
yeah,
You're just going to have to live with them. And Richard and I are like, no, we don't think so. I
yeah,
mean, we're
We
not going to
never
have,
have to settle for anything that we don't have to settle for. It's free will.
right. And I think I was at a seminar and a few different people spoke about AI in different industries. And one thing that came out is AI does, I like that you say AI doesn't have the compassion, but it also doesn't have the curiosity. So AI is,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not going to do basic empirical scientific research because it doesn't even know what it's trying to do,
Yeah.
right?
Because all it did is like learn the data from the world.
right,
Yeah.
World is basically curated with good data and garbage.
right.
And like you
It's
are
sort
basically mixing the good with the garbage, and you're eventually you're going to
Yeah.
come up with all garbage. And like let me give you one simple exercise for all the readers, like, and all the viewers on this podcast. Please go do this once. So come up with a biased solution of something. Like say like like I'm the greatest guy in the world, and just give your resume. And AI would say, like, give it to ChatGPT. And it would say, yes, you're the greatest guy in the world. And here's why. There's a confirmation bias to that. Now take the same resume and give it to Grok and say, just shred this like resume.
Mhm.
And it would say, yeah, this is like the lousiest resume I can find in the world. And then take it to another one and say, give me a moderate view of everything. And then it'll say, like, here are all the strengths, here are all the weaknesses. What is it doing? It's confirming your biases,
Mhm.
right? So models have been trained with a lot of bias in sight, and with a lot of data that is is available generally. Not all general purpose data is right. Why do I say that? Sometimes you go to Google and see like if a restaurant is open, it says it's open, but it's not really open.
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Right?
before the show, Elizabeth brought up the SAP, which is an ERP system that was, I don't know, first popularized probably back in the 80s, right? And 90s. But at the time, people thought that those ERP systems, and it was a software that would organize operations for a company, right? So you would organize invoicing and inventory. And the idea was to use software to essentially kind of micromanage different aspects of the company. And it was thought uh, that SAP ERP system would make things more profitable. Well, it's been years, and those ERP systems have worked somewhat, but they're not perfect, and they still require a lot of human intervention. And I think the point that Elizabeth was going to make, if I can put words in your mouth, dear,
Yes.
was that this is not so far away now from the artificial intelligence that there was a lot of optimism to begin with, and it did do a lot of useful things. But as things played out, it turned out not to be the perfect solution to everything. And I'm kind of interested, Shaker, on what you think about that.
Yeah. So let me give you the real perspective, right? Like so So all of these plannings, like, let me go back to the evolution of supply chains. Like, I think like the readers would really love to know, like, how did supply chain even evolve and all these things, like, and so there were really four, like, evolutions to supply chain as we know it today, right? The first one was the world of GMs and Fords and the milkman, two extremes. The GM and Ford was a vertically integrated supply chain in the sense they made their own parts, they made their own assembly, they made their own cars, and basically they had their own distributors where you would get the car. So they managed the end-to-end process. And then there were the milkmen who actually would milk and come and give you the bottle of milk at your door. So it was like do it yourself. So those are two extremes of the supply chain that existed, and it was not even called one at that time. People called it with a different name. And then the economy opened, and people started to find where can I produce cheaper than what I'm doing, and who are my consumers. So everything got separated in time and space. So the producer happened to be in China, and the raw material happened to be in Tanzania, and basically the metal was supposed to come from Congo Basin because they were all the cheapest sources. So the hunt for the cheapest source and how do I manage the pipeline of the flow of goods became the second evolution of supply chains. That's why when you see and talk to supply chain people from the 90s and the 2000s, all of these softwares that you're talking about, Richard and Elizabeth, they were all good in managing the procurement processes, like how do I pay my bills and how do I plan the inventory right. Okay. Then came the third evolution, which is Amazonification, right? Which is I click a button and I get it. So stop going to the stores, get it to my house. Stop buying a basket, give me like one item at a time. That's the world that Amazon created. So what used to be available in 1,000 stores, you would go to a Walmart store, you would go to like the closest neighborhood store, you buy stuff and you come back home. So you're buying your own basket. Now it had to go access 130 million households. And then as Amazon became more and more popular, this was a third evolution. So it became like it went from B2B businesses, like business to business movement, to business to consumer movement. Very different. 130 million households, very different than going to 1,000 doors. Now everyone is trying to catch up on that journey. That's where the future is going to go with supply chains. And in that world, the consumer, you expect something to be coming to your door at a specific time. So it's like a factory like thinking. I want it at 8 o'clock, so it has to leave a certain like depot by 6 o'clock. Hence, it needs to get there by like 5 o'clock. Hence, someone needs to get it like from the other place on an 8-hour journey, prior to that. And hence, the entire supply chain is stitched like a time-based network. So what happens in a world where so many people are involved? Nothing works exactly to the plan. And if nothing works to the plan, what do you need? Not another planning system. What you need is a better execution system which would adapt to these changes. And the world has not built one. So SAP, while a great planning system, could not really figure out how to manage exceptions. And hence the humans are always involved in that. So this journey of perfection is one of like evolution. It's a utopian goal. Perfection is utopia. You're never perfect, and hence there's always going to be human in the loop.
Yeah.
Well, that's reassuring, I think,
Well,
perspective.
Yeah, and I think in terms of that, instead of worrying about AI taking your job, you have to make AI work for you right now. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, so I had a meetup last night, and I'll talk about that a little later. And I put it through a software program, and then I took it and I put it through ChatGPT and said, do a summary email. The meetup was like an hour and a half long, 2 hours long. And it spit it out, and it's like perfect. Well, close to perfect. It wasn't 100% perfect because nothing's perfect. But in the past, it would have taken me like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
go
it's
through
very
all that.
tempting. I mean, how can you resist a software that does that? We have time for one more question or comment from Shekar, and we did mention at the top of the show that you had 150 patents.
Yeah.
As an intellectual property lawyer, of course, I'm enormously curious about this, but maybe for our listeners, you can tell us which one of those 150 patents is your favorite?
Well, the one I'm building right now, Angelic Intelligence. Angelic Intelligence is basically, think of that as uh, like a consciousness operating system. Like, how do you bring super consciousness into the process of decision making?
Mm.
And like, how do you, like, what is the architecture of the digital angels? Like, there are obviously 27 angels, and then there are like seven like categories it belongs, and like, it's very similar to the seven like energy points that you have in your body, the seven like planes of like consciousness, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
like correlation to like the world of consciousness, which is like really like the best in you. It's not like seeking the outside, it's like what is best in you, and basically unleashing that. So I have filed for what, like, 40 patents. This is like beyond the 150 that I have, but this would be the most beautiful thing for me. And the reason why this is very beautiful for me is, I talked to you about my father, I talked to you about my mother, I want to talk to you about my son. My son looks exactly like my father.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay, and when I held my son, I said to myself, I'm going to leave a lot of angels in your life, a lot of angels, not a million, a billion, because that is going to be generational impact.
Mhm.
And for
I-
me, this is deeply personal, because it is what I'm trying to do through this journey, both personal and professional, and like, what I'm trying to build as a company, is all tied together. And it is to leave a better future for kids like my son. We
mm,
don't need to figure out how to go live on Mars. We can just make Mother Earth look better.
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting patent, and I'll be very curious about how it turns out. It sounds like it would be uh, an amazing concept to protect. So, and speaking of intellectual property, oh, Shaker, before we go, where can people find you if they want to contact your company and maybe get some information about AI and logistics?
Not in a police station.
That's good.
Well, that's
That was easy.
good.
So yes, they can find me. They can Google me. They can LinkedIn me. Like, they can. I'm pretty searchable. And like, anyone who's interested remotely, not even connected to entrepreneurship, and is just looking to someone to talk to, I would be happy to pick up the call and talk to you guys,
So
even if it's not business related.
is it your full name? Should I spell your name, or would you like to spell your name?
Yeah, it's like Shekar, Shekar, like, but it's like, it's not, it's like salt and pepper shaker, but it's Shekar is how it's phonetically like written. And Natarajan, Nat as in Thomas, R as in Robert, Jack, Jan. Now you could probably see, because every time I had to speak my name to a guy like sitting somewhere on a customer service call, I had to just like spell every letter out.
Well,
S. Smith, H. Harry, E. Edward, K. Kite, A. Apple, R. Robert.
well, thank you for that very generous offer to our audience to reach
Yeah.
out to you and share your wisdom and engage in some interesting discussion. Passage to Profit is a nationally syndicated radio show appearing in 38 markets across the United States. In addition, Passage to Profit has also been recently selected by FeedSpot Podcasters Database as a top 10 entrepreneur interview podcast. Thank you to the P2P team, our producer Noah Fleischman, and our program coordinator Alicia Morrissey, our studio assistant Risikat Busari, and our social media powerhouse Carolina Tabares. Look for our podcast tomorrow anywhere you get your podcasts. Our podcast is ranked in the top 3% globally. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and on our YouTube channel. And remember, while the information information on this program is believed to be correct. Never take a legal step without checking with your legal professional first. Gearhart Law is here for your patent, trademark, and copyright needs. You can find us at gearhartlaw.com and contact us for a free consultation. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.